Today, we're talking about why the comparisons between Zach Wilson and Mac Jones need to stop. Welcome in, everyone. My name is Jake Asman. This is the Jake Asman Show for a Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. On Monday Night Football, we watched the New England Patriots take down the Buffalo Bills, and their rookie quarterback, Mac Jones, drop back to pass three whole times. Now, we're going to get into why the comparisons between Zach and Mac Jones are dumb. We'll answer some questions at the end of this video involving the Jets and the NFL. But I just want to point this out right off the jump. If the Jets tried the approach that New England did last night, they would have lost 100-0. All right. So to put in perspective how much better the Patriots are, how much better coached they are, and why it's just ridiculous to compare Mac Jones to any of these other rookie quarterbacks, not just Zach Wilson. If the Jets tried to implement that exact strategy, they would have lost 100-0 last night. I don't care what the weather conditions were. So I got to get that off my chest as we start here. With that being said, a lot to talk about, a lot to dive in. I do want to say that support for our show is presented by Manscaped. Manscaped has launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Join the over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for supporting our show. If you go to manscaped.com, you'll get 20% off and free worldwide shipping by using my promo code ASMAN. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Once again, it's time to get the best of the best for men's below the waist grooming. Your balls will thank you. That being said, let's start. If you're new to the show, I ask you hit the subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. You also can support the show by just clicking the like button right down below. That's that thumbs up icon. I got to get this off my chest because I'm watching this game last night, and I don't want to make this about, well, Mac Jones is not any good. Mac Jones, I think, is a good quarterback. I think he's done a nice job in his rookie year. If you look at Mac Jones, you look at Mac Jones's numbers, 13 games played, completing 70% of his passes. He's got 16 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, QBR of 51.4. But you got to look at this Patriots team and separate what they are from what the New York Jets are. Separate what they are from what the Jacksonville Jaguars are or the Chicago Bears. Like comparing Zach Wilson and saying, well, why is he not doing what Mac Jones is doing? It's such utter nonsense. I hope people watched that game last night and now could come to that same realization. Mac Jones has been good, but the Patriots are running the 2009 Jets offense where Mark Sanchez had the #1 rushing attack in the NFL. He had a stud offensive line that featured multiple Hall of Famers and multiple All-Pros, and he had a defensive-minded head coach that built the #1 defense in the NFL. Sound familiar? That's what the Patriots are doing for Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been better than what Sanchez was in 2009. So once again, I'm not anti-Mac Jones. I just think there's nuance to the conversation. Comparing Zach and even comparing Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't been good either, or Justin Fields, who hasn't been good, to Mac Jones is asinine. This idea that the Patriots were god-awful last year and then they just rebuilt in 1 year and now they're a championship caliber team again is not true. New England had the 15th pick in the draft last year. Jacksonville had 1. The Jets had 2. The Bears were not any good because they had Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky. They had to move up to get Justin Fields. They're a flawed team. Like, you look at the circumstances that these quarterbacks are in, the Patriots were not bad last year. They were mediocre. They won 7 games with Cam Newton as their quarterback, and they won 7 games despite all the opt-outs they had due to COVID reasons. Now you look at the offseason, they go out there and spend the most money ever in free agency to improve their team. They get a bunch of players back from COVID opt-outs. And, oh, yeah, they have Bill Belichick, who's the greatest football coach of all time. Belichick won a game last night where his quarterback threw 3 times. If the Jets tried that strategy, they would have lost 1,000-0. I take back what I said about 100-0. It wouldn't have mattered. They would have been smashed out of the building if they tried to deploy that strategy. So I just get so frustrated when I hear, oh, well, why isn't it Zach playing like Mac Jones? Because Zach Wilson's on a team that's not any good. He's in year 1 of a rebuild with the Jets. He's got a first-year head coach, a first-year OC. He's got the worst defense in the league. I mean, Zach Wilson went out there and was excellent in the first half against the Eagles. Yet the Jets were still trailing because, well, one, they don't have a kicker. So they're the first team, I think, in like NFL history to score 18 points despite having 3 touchdowns. Like, it's asinine to compare the scenarios. If Zach Wilson was on the Patriots, he'd have the same numbers as Mac Jones. Same with Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. I think Mac Jones could be a good quarterback. I think he'll continue to improve. But I honestly think if you put Zach or any of these QBs in that system where you have the best coach of all time, a great OC, a phenomenal running game, a phenomenal offensive line, and the number one defense in the sport, all those rookie quarterbacks would be winning as well, right? I think the Patriots would have the exact same record with any of the other rookies as they would with Mac Jones. That doesn't mean Mac Jones is not playing well. He is. He's completing a high percentage of his passes. He's not turning the ball over. But I'm sorry, man. Like, New England just won a game last night on the road against a good Bills team, and they threw 3 times. Please stop comparing Zach Wilson to Mac Jones. It's not a fair comparison. The two are in light year different situations. Like, picture the Patriots as the 2009 Jets for the Jet fan that still is not able to understand why it's dumb to compare the two. Mark Sanchez inherited the perfect situation. They went all the way to the AFC Championship game. Mac Jones is in the same spot, only it's a better spot. Why? Because Belichick's a better coach than Rex Ryan. The Patriots defense is probably just as good as the 2009 Jets defense, but Mac Jones' OC is Josh McDaniels, who's been an NFL head coach. Mark Sanchez had Brian Schottenheimer. Like, what are we doing here, folks? And look at the numbers for the rookie quarterbacks in their season. I pulled up the stats right here. We'll go through each one just to tell you that Zach Wilson's not the only rookie quarterback that has struggled this year. And despite popular belief, Mac Jones hasn't been perfect either. He's just on the best team. Let's look at the numbers here. Trevor Lawrence with Jacksonville has played 12 games. He's completing 58% of his passes, 5.9 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns. His QBR is 33.7. Zach Wilson's played 8 games with the New York Jets. Now, mind you, 7 full games. He got hurt in that New England game. He's completing 58% of his passes, 6.3 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns, QBR of 25.0. Now, it's worth noting with Zach, 4 of his interceptions came in one game, by far and away his worst game of his career, week 2 in the home opener against the Patriots. Not making an excuse for him. The stats count, but it does put proper context on the turnovers for Zach Wilson. Justin Fields, 10 games played. He's completing, guess what? 58% of his passes. Sound familiar? Oh, the same amount of completion percentage that Trevor and Zach have? Yes. 6.9 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns, QBR of 25.8. Mac Jones' numbers, I gave them at the top. Once again, Mac Jones, 13 games played, 70.3% completion percentage, 7.5 yards per attempt, 16 touchdowns, 8 picks, 51.4 QBR. The reality is Mac Jones is playing the best, but he's also on the best team by far. By far. Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, they went to bad football teams. And in the case of Wilson and in the case of Lawrence, they went to bad football teams with first-time head coaches. Jacksonville won 1 football game last year. The Jets won 2 football games last year. New England won 7 with Cam as their quarterback, who stinks. New England won 7 despite the COVID opt-outs. So what are we doing here? I stop telling me, oh, Zach's not playing as well as Mac Jones. Yeah, he's not. He's also not on a good team. All right. The reality is the Jets are far away from winning right now. We all see that. They need another really good offseason, another really good draft where they have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds, where they have 4 picks in the top 40. Like that's obvious. That goes without question. Yet some of you are annoyed that Zach Wilson through 7 full NFL games is not Mac Jones. Did you watch Mac Jones last night? He threw 3 times. The Patriots don't even trust him because he's a rookie and they're putting him in a position to succeed. He will get better. I bet you Mac ends up being a good quarterback, but so will Zach if you're just patient enough to watch it unfold and play out. If you ask me right now, who has the higher ceiling as a quarterback in the NFL out of any of the rookies, I still would probably take the ceiling of Trevor and Zach and maybe even Fields for that matter over Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is the highest floor but he's also coming from Alabama, Nick Saban, playing with great players. And now he goes to New England. He's got the best coach of all time, a great running game, a great defense. Quarterback play is so much about your situation. Mark Sanchez won 4 road playoff games in 2 years, in large part because of the situation that he walked into. And I love Mark Sanchez, but let's be real about what Mark inherited. The second the Jets took the, quote, training wheels off of him after his 3rd season in the league, the Jets imploded, and Mark never amounted to being a good quarterback. So much about quarterback play early on in your career is about the situation you're in. Mac Jones is in by far, in a way, the greatest of situations. It's not even close. With that being said, I'm sure a lot of people have some takes on this. Let's see what you're thinking. Let's see what you thought of the game last night. Like the video down below. Subscribe by hitting the red subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. And a reminder that if you want to interact with the show away from YouTube, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Asman. Let me know your thoughts on Twitter as well. With that being said, let's open it up to some comments and or questions, and let's see what you guys are thinking. Wayne writes in, Jake, you said it. Mac has the best coach in the NFL. The Jets have a rookie defensive coordinator trying to pull off head coaching. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The reality is Bill Belichick is the greatest football coach in the history of the NFL. All right, he won a game last night where his quarterback passed 3 times. 3 times. Robert Saleh, I think, has a chance to be a good coach. We don't know yet, though. Zach Wilson obviously is in a way worse situation. Just give him time. Give him time. If Mac Jones was on the Jets, you know what the Jets record would be right now? 3-9. Be the same exact record it is right now. Let's see. Richard Corey writes in, how is it the Patriots never have an injury and the Jets are without 4 of their top 5 players most of the year? Richard, I don't know if that's necessarily true. The Patriots do have injuries. They have more depth. They have better coaching. They're able to overcome injuries. Now, every team gets injuries. Yes, the Jets have been dealt a crappy hand with the injuries, but the reality is, like, the Jets just don't have enough depth to overcome a lot of their injuries. Like, we were talking about how bad this defense was, even with the assumption that Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, and Marcus May were going to be on it. You know, that's just an unfortunate reality of where we're at right now. Let's see. Solomon writes in, Jake, the narrative of Belichick being the GOAT, blah, blah. He keeps getting lucky. Bills missed that field goal on the last drive instead of touchdown. They could have hit a field goal and been up by 2. Solomon, look, the reality is you can't be good for 20 years and say it's lucky, right? Like, I'm just not going to go there. Bill Belichick's the greatest head football coach in my lifetime. He's probably the greatest of all time. Like, he won a game last night where his quarterback threw 3 times. New England wins because they don't make mistakes that other teams make. Like, Robert Saleh said something after the Jets blew that game against the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago that I agree with. He said 90% of games in the NFL are lost, not won. That was basically what happened last night. The Bills lost that game. New England doesn't lose games, right? They rarely make mistakes. Mac Jones's whole objective last night was to stay out of the way, and they won because they have a great defense, a great running game, and they're coached better. Sean McDermott was awful last night for the Bills. Managing his clock, the timeouts was terrible. The challenge that he called on the spot was not ever going to get overturned. That only gets overturned if you're playing the Jets, as we saw on Sunday. Like it's the reality is Belichick, he coaches his team to not lose games, and it works, and it's worked for 20 years. Richard writes in, if we're forced to see Brady versus Belichick in the Super Bowl, I'm becoming a soccer fan. I actually don't hate Tom Brady. He's way easier to stomach, to root for. Not root for, but like just deal with when he's not on the Patriots. Like, I actually rooted for Brady in the Super Bowl last year. Allow me to explain, Jet fans. I want the narrative to be that New England blew it by letting Brady walk. I think that's already the case. By the way, if Tom Brady's on the Patriots right now, they'd be undefeated, just so everyone is aware. All right, that's how good this team is with a rookie quarterback. If Brady's on this team right now, New England is undefeated, or they have maybe one loss, maybe. But if the reality is Brady now winning a championship with Tampa and playing like an MVP now in year 2 with Tampa means that New England made the wrong move moving on from him. Belichick's ego got in the way of preventing him from keeping the greatest quarterback of all time and potentially winning another Super Bowl. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And ultimately, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan now could take ownership in Tom Brady's career. His number will be retired down in Tampa. the Patriots don't have Tom Brady all to themselves. They got to share him now with the Tampa Bay sports fan, which I love, because if Tom Brady was going to win another one, I'd much rather him win one away from New England than being on New England. No doubt about that. Snoopy writes in, Jake, that Knicks jersey is fire. Thanks, Snoopy. I got my Knicks quarter zip on as they try and get back to 500 tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. The Knicks are actually coming to Houston next week. I'll be at the game at the Toyota Center downtown. And Brooklyn is here tomorrow night as James Harden's back here in Houston. So I will be watching that. Benji writes in, Manscaped is great. I've had it for years. Manscaped is great. They reached out about being a sponsor for the show a couple of weeks back, and I've always been a fan. And they sent me some new product, and I can't say enough good things about Manscaped. So if you need a gift for the holidays, manscaped.com, Lawnmower 4.0. It's phenomenal. Promo code Asman, you'll get 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Let's see. Eddie writes in, if Mac Jones was a Jet, he'd be called a bust, according to impatient Jet fans. Yeah. Imagine the reaction if Mac Jones was a Jet right now, and they reached on taking a guy that was not supposed to be that high. The Jets would be 3-9 if Mac Jones was their quarterback, just so everyone knows. And I think the Patriot record would be probably around the same if Zach Wilson was their coach. I want to know why? Because they would coach up Zach to not make any mistakes. They'd run the ball. They would make sure that he's not throwing downfield. If he did have any interceptions, they'd say, that's it. We're not allowing you to do any of that. They would coach what makes Zach special out of him for the sake of just winning, because they're a lot closer to winning. Ben writes in, this explains team success, but it does not explain Zach hesitating and the game being fast for him. Bang, the game's fast for him because he's coming from BYU and he's 22 years old and he's played 7 full NFL games. Did you expect Zach Wilson to come in and be great? Like, the expectations for Zach Wilson this year were so ridiculous by people who don't know anything. It's just out of control. Relax. All right. If Zach Wilson is still struggling like he has at times this year, a year from now, we'll have that conversation. But the reality is Zach Wilson needs more than 7 full NFL games for us to know what he is, especially when we've seen flashes of brilliance this year. Go back to the second half of the Panther game, the Titans game, the first half against the Eagles game. Zach has shown you at times he could make all the throws. He could be a special talent, but it's not going to come together right away. And anyone who thought it was just lying to you. That for every Justin Herbert, there are the vast majority of rookie quarterbacks that are struggling. Is the game too fast also for Trevor Lawrence, the generational prospect that can't miss? I mean, give me a break. Trevor Lawrence has not thrown a touchdown pass in over a month. He's got 9 touchdowns to 10 interceptions this year, and he's completing 58% of his passes. Zach Wilson has thrown 6 touchdown passes to 11 interceptions, and he's played in 8 games. Lawrence has played in 12, and he only has 3 more touchdown passes than Zach Wilson. And he only has 1 less interception than Zach Wilson, understanding the context that Wilson had 4 in 1 game. Like, they're all struggling, besides Mac, who's on a really good team. That's the difference. I just answered your question here, Bang. I appreciate the contribution. But look, I understand your point, and I understand the Jet fans' frustration. But the reality is you're not watching the other rookies. You're just seeing like, oh, Mac Jones is playing well because he's on the Patriots, and you're assuming he's been great. He's been fine. But they're running the 09 Jets offense. I don't know how else to say it. And like, Zach is doing a better job with the short passes and reading defenses. The game is not too fast for him. Maybe it was at first. We've seen some significant progress from Zach Wilson in these recent weeks. I mean, Zach Wilson just went out there and was 23 of 38 for 226 with 2 touchdowns and a touchdown run. Just be a little more patient with Zach Wilson. And also, Zach Wilson got hurt. Like, I think Zach Wilson's a little slower in his development than we want him to be, just because he had to miss time. He had to miss those 4 games. It's unfortunate. Let's see. Let's see. Mac has the ability to be Mac. Zach can be an MVP type of player. I don't know exactly what that means, but I mean, the reality is I think Mac Jones could be a successful NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. What I'm saying is Zach Wilson, I think, has a higher ceiling if he fulfills his potential. It's going to take time, though. He's on a way worse team. Richard writes in, Mac Jones averages 0.75 passes a quarter last night, and they won a game. So I think he's surrounded by much better players and coaches. You think? Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, once again, if you watched that game last night and your takeaway is, why isn't Zach Wilson Mac Jones? I got nothing for you. Please don't ever watch my channel again. I just don't have the patience. Let's see. V-Man writes in, Mac was going to have the better early success. However, as other teams improve, their quarterbacks will catch and or surpass him. By the way, moment of silence for the 80th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack. V-Man, thanks for watching the channel and the contribution. Yeah, December 7th, 1941. Crazy. 80 years. 80 years since one of the darkest days in the history of our country. So no doubt about that. Thanks to all those who serve and have served in our great nation's history. Anthony writes in, Zach Wilson looked awesome Sunday. I don't care what anyone says. That's the thing. Zach Wilson played a good game on Sunday. It's not like he played how he did against the Texans. He improved. The biggest thing I heard from Jet fans was, well, why isn't Zach Wilson managing the game like Mac Jones? So he manages the game against the Texans, leads 2 scoring drives, Jets win. Then, well, why isn't Zach Wilson getting better? He gets better against the Eagles, and it's still not good enough for some of you. Some of you want Zach Wilson to be Peyton Manning already, and that's just not going to happen. Or you want him to be Patrick Mahomes. Go look at Patrick Mahomes' numbers, by the way, in his most recent game. Threw for under 200 yards, had an interception, and completed 50% of his passes. It takes time. Like, not every quarterback can be great every game. We're still learning about Zach Wilson. He's played 7 full NFL games. Be a little more patient. Let's see. Larry writes in, nothing like sitting in the parking lot MetLife, and your view is a giant air conditioning unit in a mall built on a diagonal. I've long talked about this, Larry. MetLife Stadium is the world's largest air conditioning unit. There is not a worse usage of money than the $2 billion, I think it was, for MetLife. I mean, it's just, there's nothing appealing about MetLife Stadium. It's bland. It's boring to look at. There's no special amenities. There's no retractable roof, so you can't even have like concerts there year round. MetLife Stadium is the woat. I mean, compared to some of the newer stadiums that have been built in the last decade, the Jets and Giants dropped the ball big time on MetLife Stadium. Make no mistake about that. Let's see. Jake, when is the Jets' first mock draft 1.0 coming out? Salman, I promise we will have a lot of mock draft coverage. I'm actually going to let you guys in on a little something here. So I'm attending an event tomorrow night, my radio show here in Houston. And any of my Houston listeners, make sure you're listening to ESPN 97.5 or 92.5. My radio show tomorrow night, so this will be on Wednesday night, is going to be broadcasting live from the Rotary Lombardi Awards. It's one of those college football postseason awards that get handed out every year. This award goes to the best defensive and or offensive lineman in the country. There are 4 finalists for the award. 3 of them have a legitimate chance to be New York Jets. One of them is Aiden Hutchinson, who I don't think will be a Jet, but hey, you never know. The other one is Spencer Lindenbaum, and then the other one is the guard from A&M Green, who's one of the top offensive linemen. I should be getting some interviews with each of those draft prospects, so I will talk to them about the possibility of wearing jet green next year. So make sure you're locked into the channel, you subscribe, and like all the videos, and hopefully you'll be seeing some Jake Asman draft content coming up a little earlier than probably most other channels will be able to give that to you. Let's see. Mike writes in, I was happy to see the progress Zach made this week. It was a major improvement over what we've been watching. It had me very concerned, and hopefully he can now build on his improvement. Look, all we wanted from Zach Wilson is to show growth and progress down the stretch. His first game back against the Texans, Zach looked like a guy who hadn't played in a month. His second game, he looked so much better. He looked comfortable. His footwork got better. He went out there in the pocket and executed the offense. He got the ball out quicker. Statistically, his time holding the ball was way lower than it had been in any game this year. He's getting better, guys. Just like Mike LaFleur is getting better as an OC, and he made the adjustment to go up and coach from the box. Like, I don't know what people expected from Zach this year. It's like, oh, well, he's not Mac Jones. Yeah, because if the Jets tried to have a game where They threw 3 times. You know what the score would be? 1,000-0. I mean, my God. Eric writes in, let's not forget the Jets haven't had a tight end in years. Tight end has to be a major priority for this football team this offseason. Make no mistake about it. Zach Wilson was the only bright spot in this game on Sunday. Look, Zach Wilson was good. He wasn't the only bright spot. I will tell you, if you want a Jets defensive player that actually didn't suck against the Philadelphia Eagles, you guessed it. That guy was Bryce Hall. 9 yards allowed on 3 targets. All other defenders, 233 yards allowed on 19 targets. Bryce Hall is the only redeeming quality about this Jets defense from this game on Sunday. And you need way more than just one good defensive player playing well if you're going to win on Sundays. Eddie DeJesus writes in, smash the like button, subscribe. Eddie, you're the man. Thanks so much for watching the channel each and every day, my friend. Really appreciate your support. BC writes in, I think Wilson showed improvement. We're going to be just fine. Give him time. Talent is there. Once again, Jet fans, when was the last time you could point to a draft class where the first 4 picks look like they have some serious potential? I will not include Wilson in this conversation because he's an unknown as a quarterback. He's played 7 full NFL games. Elijah Moore, stud. AVT, stud. Michael Carter, stud. Joe Douglas hit on maybe his first 4 picks, but certainly his first 3. He needs more time. He needs another draft. He's got 7 picks in the first 4 rounds. He's got 2 picks in the top 40. Patience is the only way the Jets are going to get out of this. They got to stack back-to-back drafts and continue to build up the roster and the depth. Let's see. I see if you guys are talking about the draft coverage with some of the interviews with those players. It will not be live on Twitch, Salman, but I'm hoping to at least tape some of this. I'll either have the audio or maybe a visual component to share. So no doubt about that. Let me tell you something. When we get to the offseason, the success I had with this channel was all because I had basically you name the draft insider or expert on talking about what the Jets should do with the Darnold Wilson debate and what they should do with some of the rest of their picks. Name a draft guy you want to see on this YouTube channel, and I can promise you I'll do everything possible to get them on. I mean, I'm talking big names. Like we will get McShay on, we will get Kuiper on, we will get Daniel Jeremiah on, we'll get my guy Connor Rogers on from Bleacher Report and who does the Badlands podcast with Joe Caporoso. Like, there's not going to be a better channel on YouTube that will cover the draft, specifically because I have a lot of sources, not just with Jets folks, but Texans people as well. And the Texans are going to be in the mix in the top 3. So make sure you're obviously watching each and every day on YouTube, but there'll be a ton of draft coverage on this channel. Make no mistake about that. You also are going to want to be following me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll post a lot of behind the scenes stuff from this Rotary Lombardi Awards. So Twitter, Instagram at Jake Asman. Give me a follow there. Let's see. Brian writes in, Jake, if you could undo one Jets injury from the season, which would it be? Brian, this is an excellent question. And I think I would say without question, the injury I would undo if that was possible. I think that'd be Carl Lawson. Now, I was thinking Mekhi Becton because it would be nice to see him and AVT play a full year with Zach Wilson at quarterback. But the Jets' offensive line has not been as bad as it was early in the year, and they have some depth at the tackle spot because of Fant and because of Morgan Moses being a late signing who's played well. But I think it's Carl Lawson, Brian, and I'll tell you why. This Jets defense, as talented as some of the players on the defensive line are, like John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, they're good players. They need that stud edge rusher, and based on all accounts, Carl Lawson was going to be that guy. And if Lawson's on one of the edges with Franklin Myers, with Quinnen, I just think an elite pass rush would make up for a lot of the issues the Jets have had at safety, linebacker, and outside of Bryce Hall, some of the issues they've had at corner. If Carl Lawson's on this team, their defense is infinitely better. That's why going into the draft, I would say out of the 2 picks the Jets have in the first round, if one of them is not an edge rusher, I'd probably be a little surprised. I don't think you could ever have enough pass rushers, especially if you're Robert Saleh and you went to a Super Bowl on the back of your defensive line with the Niners. So, I think Carl Lawson would be the injury I'd want to undo. He was the Jets' biggest free agent signing. They gave him the bag. They gave him the money, and he gets hurt before we ever saw him play a game, which was just a crushing crushing blow for this team. Got to draft a tight end. The ones that get the free agency are usually on their last legs. Look, Vinny, I would have no issue if the Jets use the second-round pick on a tight end. They have neglected that position. I talked about this, on the show before. Basically, the entire tight end room needs to be, turned over. Like, basically, they need to go out there and use free agency and the draft on addressing the tight end spot. Add a couple reliable pass catchers to help Zach Wilson take the next step in his second year in the league. Sauce Gardner and Bryce Hall, best duo in football. Sauce Gardner is an intriguing guy to draft, certainly because, he's got a great name. No doubt about that. Also, Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU is a stud. I'd be all about that as well. Dean writes in 4 picks in the top 40. Thanks to our guy Sam Darnold and the Panthers, the Jets are going to have a high second-round pick. Keep that in mind. So you're talking about a Jets team that has 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 4s. There's the trade back potential, the trade up potential. There's a lot to be excited about with this offseason. Trin the Great. I really feel like Elijah Moore is overrated. He's dropped way too many catchable balls. Am I missing something? When was the last time the Jets have drafted a rookie wide receiver that's been this impactful? Trin, Elijah Moore's a rookie. He's not perfect. He's going to have drops. He's going to have some miscues. He started slow, as we recall, this rookie NFL season. Elijah Moore is the least of the Jet fan problem. Elijah Moore's been awesome. He drops too many catchable balls. He's not going to be perfect. He's a rookie. Some of the expectations for players on this team are just, they baffle me. I mean, what more do you want from Elijah Moore? Let's see. I'm going to keep going through some of the comments here. A lot of times you guys are responding to one another, so I don't want to cherry pick a comment unless I know the specifics of the conversation, which is hard to do when you produce and host a show by yourself. Michael Woodward writes in, I really like Zach. Do you think he'll gain any muscle in the offseason? I mean, I'm sure he'll continue to work out and add to his his built, but I think the reality is Zach Wilson's body type is his body type. And he's not the first quarterback to look the way he does and have success in the NFL. I think Zach just overall, as he continues to learn how to be a pro, will get better and better. That's the least of my concern right now as far as Zach Wilson. Is it time to fire Jeff Ulbrich? Andrew, I would say he's going to get the year. They're not going to fire him in season. If the Jets defense continues to get torched every game down the stretch here, I don't think it's a lock he's back, but I also think Saleh's loyal to his guys. He knows the talent level on defense is bad, and they had all the injuries. I think Ulbrich maybe gets another year. We shall see, though, because I've been very disappointed with this defense, as I think everyone watching this video has as well. Let's see. Let's see how Mac does when Bill retires in 4 to 5 years. I'd love to see what the Patriots are when Bill Belichick is eventually not there. Let's see. This defense seriously lacks talent everywhere. What the hell is Ulbrich supposed to do with this roster? Nick, I agree with you. And I've made this very clear because every time you talk about the Jets defense being bad, you're always reminded about how bad the talent level is. And believe me, I agree. The Jets defensive talent level is awful. My issue with the defense is it seems like they're poorly coached. They're out of position. They don't make adjustments. They're leaving guys wide open. What's the excuse to allow a 3rd and 19 conversion the other game? What's the excuse to not cover not Mike Gesicki? What's the excuse to not cover Dallas Goedert? My issue is not just the defense being bad, but are we asking for too much? Apparently we are. But are we asking for too much for the Jets defense to go out there against the Eagles in this game this past Sunday and force a punt in the first half? Get off the field before allowing a 10-minute drive that prevents Zach Wilson from getting the ball in the entire third quarter outside of 70 seconds. I don't think we're asking for that much for this defense to be a little better. Make some adjustments. We understand the talent level is not good. The talent level wasn't good before the injuries started to mount. But I don't think we're asking for that much for this team to force a punt before the game is over on Sunday. It hasn't been good enough. And the improvements that I heard from the Jets about how their defense played against Miami and then Houston, want to know how they made improvements against Houston? The Texans stink. Stink. They're one of the worst offenses in modern NFL history. Go look it up. They came in the Sunday's game against the Colts with the lowest point total in the NFL this year. They averaged just under 15 points per game. 15 points per game in the NFL. And they didn't score against Indy on Sunday. They were shut out. So, like, that Texan game doesn't mean anything. Like, it didn't show us anything. The Jets defensive line also is so vastly overrated. I understand there's no Carl Lawson, and Sheldon Rankins didn't play on Sunday against Philly. But when your defensive line is supposed to be the strength of the team, and you're only good against crappy offensive lines, and the second you play a good O-line, you get dominated, you're not that good of a unit. That's why the Jets need another edge rusher. They need a healthy Carl Lawson, and they need to use the draft to get another stud pass rusher, because that could help impact the game drastically starting next year. Big Boy Jimbo writes in, why was our defense decent the first couple games and then terrible after that? Big Boy, it's a great question. Phenomenal name, by the way. I don't know. That's what's upsetting and frustrating here. See, the narrative that the Jets have sucked on D the entire year is not true. They were decent at the beginning of the year. Their defense kept them in games when the offense was sputtering as Zach Wilson was trying to get used to the NFL. Now it's just been awful. The defense has been horrible. I mean, I have the numbers. I hate having to bring this up, but really, ever since the bye week, the defense has just been non-existent. 54 points allowed to New England, 31 to Cincinnati, 45 to Indy, 45 to Buffalo, 24 to Miami, like 14 to the Texans. I'll ignore that. Texans stink. 33 to the Eagles. It's not good enough, man. It's not good enough. I don't know the answer as to why this team has been as bad as they've been. Anthony writes, all I see on Jets Twitter is how good Michael Carter 2, Bryce Hall, Mosley, JFM, QR. It seems like the Jets have some talent. They do have some talent, Anthony, but not enough talent. And my issue with Q and JFM is when they play good defensive offensive lines, they don't impact the game like they should. They need to need to continue to add to their defense. CJ Mosley's been okay this year. He got off to a good start. I didn't think he had a good game on Sunday against the Eagles. Bryce Hall's been good. Michael Carter 2's been okay. But when you don't have safeties, when you don't have any outside linebackers, when you're banged up on your defensive line, you don't have enough. You do not have enough, and that's the reality for the New York Jets right now. With that being said, I ask if you're new to the channel, or even if you're a returning viewer, you could like this video right down below. It's super easy. More likes means more people see the content. I appreciate all of you who take time to watch. Also, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you want some behind-the-scenes coverage of the Rotary Lombardi Awards. I can't promise anything, but it's looking pretty good in regards to getting a chance to talk to maybe future Jet Aiden Hutchinson, maybe future Jet Spencer Lindenbaum. So please give me a follow, Twitter and Instagram, for the behind-the-scenes coverage. And as always, make sure you support the channel by hitting the subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. My name is Jake Asman. This has been the Jake Asman Show for a Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Thanks to everyone who took time to watch. Have a good day, and we're back with more videos coming up tomorrow and throughout the week. See everybody. Have a good one.